they thought she was an easy target. A group of bullies shoved a girl in a wheelchair to the ground, laughing as she struggled. Teachers were nowhere in sight. But someone else was watching. 30 minutes later, Justice walked in wrapped in courage and braided hair. They didn't see her coming. In a crowded school hallway, a group of bullies knocked over a girl in a wheelchair, sending her books flying and her dignity crashing to the floor. They laughed and walked away, leaving their victim shaken and humiliated. Most students averted their eyes, pretending not to see. But one girl, Jada, saw everything, and she refused to stay silent. Jada had experienced her own share of bullying. As a black girl in a mostly white school, she knew what it felt like to be singled out, to be underestimated, to be alone. But this time, someone else needed her strength. She spent the next 30 minutes looking for the girl, learning her name, Sophie, and finding out where those bullies hung out during lunch. When she found them in the cafeteria, she didn't yell or cause a scene. Instead, she walked straight up to the ringleader and asked him one question: "Why do you think hurting her makes you powerful?" The table fell silent. For a moment, it was as if the entire lunchroom held its breath. The boy muttered something, but it didn't matter. The damage was done not to Sophie, but to the illusion of control the bullies had built. Word spread fast. Teachers got involved. The bullies faced consequences. But more importantly, Sophie was no longer invisible. Jada didn't fight back with fists, she used her voice, her presence, and her conviction. She stood tall when it mattered most, and in doing so, she reminded everyone that silence is a choice, and so is courage. One girl made a difference. Not because she had to, but because she chose to. And sometimes, that's all it takes. It started with a shove. In the middle of a chaotic school hallway, a group of students knocked over a girl in a wheelchair, laughing as she fell, her backpack spilling open across the floor. No teachers were around. No one stepped in. The girl sat there, struggling to gather her things, while dozens of students walked past, pretending not to notice. But one student did notice. Her name was Amara, a quiet but observant black student who had been watching from the other end of the hall. She'd been bullied before too, not for using a wheelchair, but for the color of her skin, the texture of her hair, the way she spoke. She knew the pain of being made to feel small. And something inside her snapped. Amara rushed to help the girl, whose name she learned was Lily, and then marched straight to the assistant principal's office to report what she saw. But that wasn't all. During lunch, when the same bullies started mocking Lily again, Amara stood up in front of them all. She called them out. Not with anger, but with conviction. Her voice cut through the cafeteria noise like a blade. Picking on someone who can't fight back doesn't make you strong, it makes you a coward. The cafeteria went quiet. Students turned. Some even clapped. The bullies backed off, and Lily finally smiled. Amara didn't need to throw a punch. Her bravery was in her voice, her actions, and her refusal to let cruelty go unchecked. She defended someone who couldn't stand, and in doing so, she stood taller than anyone in the room. In a world that often tells young people to stay quiet, Amara chose to speak up. And that made all the difference. Lily didn't expect it. One moment she was wheeling herself to class, and the next, she was on the floor, her wheelchair tipped, her books scattered. A group of boys laughed as they walked away, treating her like she was nothing. Dozens of students saw it happen. Most turned their heads. No one moved to help. No one except Zaria. Zaria had always kept to herself, smart, quiet, the kind of student who teachers praised but classmates overlooked. But when she saw Lily pushed down like that, something deep inside her rose up. She knew what it meant to be ignored, to be treated as if you didn't belong. She wouldn't let it happen to someone else. She helped Lily back into her chair, gathered her books, and made sure she was okay. But Zaria didn't stop there. She found out who the boys were, and instead of waiting for adults to intervene, she confronted them herself, calmly but firmly. What did pushing her prove? That you're strong? She asked them, staring straight into the eyes of the ringleader. Because all I saw was weakness. They didn't have an answer. Students nearby watched. Some began to whisper. The boys, suddenly exposed, backed down. That day, Zaria didn't just help Lily. She taught the whole school a lesson in strength, dignity, and solidarity. Lily may have been knocked down, but Zaria made sure she didn't rise alone. In the face of cruelty, one act of courage echoed louder than any insult. Zaria stood up for someone who couldn't, and in that moment, she stood up for them both. Because true strength isn't in who you can push down, it's in who you choose to lift up. It was supposed to be a normal school day until it turned into a nightmare for Ava, a quiet girl who used a wheelchair. As she moved through the crowded hallway, a group of boys shoved her chair, knocking her sideways. She fell hard, books flying, her bag torn open. The boys laughed and walked away without a second thought. No teachers were around. Most students just kept walking. But Maya didn't. Maya had seen enough cruelty in her life to recognize it instantly. She was a black student who knew what it felt like to be singled out, mocked, and treated unfairly. But she wasn't afraid. She rushed to Ava's side, helped her up, and walked her to class. Then, she made a choice, one the bullies never saw coming. Later that day, Maya found the boys outside during lunch and stood right in front of them. No fear, no hesitation. You think hurting someone who can't fight back makes you tough, she asked. It just makes you look small. The boys tried to laugh it off, but people were watching now. Phones were out. Whispers filled the air. One teacher stepped in not to stop Maya, but to hold the boys accountable. By the end of the day, the principal had called a meeting. Disciplinary action followed. But the real impact was felt in the hallways, where students began treating Ava with respect and Maya with admiration. The bullies had expected silence. What they got was a storm of courage. Maya didn't just defend Ava, she shattered the idea that cruelty should ever be ignored. In just a few moments, she changed how her school saw strength. Because real strength? It doesn't come from hurting others. It comes from standing up for them. The hallway was buzzing with noise, lockers slamming and footsteps echoing, just another school day. But everything changed in an instant. A group of students shoved a girl in a wheelchair, laughing as she tipped over and crashed to the floor. Her books scattered. Her backpack burst open. She struggled to sit up, eyes wide with shock and embarrassment. Most students looked away. A few paused, then kept walking. But not Layla. Layla had seen enough. As a student who had faced bullying herself, mocked for her hair, her skin, her voice, she knew what it felt like to be helpless and alone. But she also knew what courage looked like. And this time, she refused to be a bystander. She rushed over to help the girl, whose name was Emily. Layla gathered her things, helped her upright, and offered a kind word. But that was just the beginning. That afternoon, Layla reported the incident to school staff. When she saw the bullies again, she didn't walk the other way. She looked them in the eye and told them what no one else had dared to say. What you did wasn't funny. It was cruel. And it ends now. Her words weren't loud, but they were powerful. Other students started to take notice. Some apologized to Emily. Teachers became more alert. The bullies, suddenly exposed, lost their audience. Layla's bravery sparked a shift. Not just in how people treated Emily, but in how they responded to bullying at all. She didn't wear a cape. She didn't need to. Her strength was in her action, her voice, her refusal to let cruelty go unchecked. In one defining moment, Layla stood up not just for Emily, but for everyone who's ever been pushed down and left behind. It happened during the lunch rush. The hallways were packed, noisy, chaotic, just like any other day. But then, a cruel laugh cut through the noise. A group of students had surrounded a girl in a wheelchair, mocking her, and in a sudden shove, they tipped her over. Her body hit the ground. Her books scattered. And the laughter rang louder than any alarm. No one moved. No one spoke. Except for one girl, Nia. Nia wasn't the loudest student in school. She didn't have a big group of friends or a reputation for speaking out. But in that moment, something inside her said enough. She pushed through the crowd, helped the girl, whose name was Rachel, back into her chair, and looked the bully straight in the eyes. Pick on someone your own size? Or are you only brave when someone can't fight back? She said. The hallway went still. Nia's words weren't just a defense, they were a challenge. And for once, the bullies had nothing to say. As students started whispering, phones came out, and teachers arrived, the situation quickly shifted. The boys were sent to the office. Rachel was checked on. But something else happened, too. Respect. Not just for Rachel, but for Nia, the girl who had the courage to act when everyone else froze. In a school where cruelty had become a daily routine, Nia's bravery broke the silence. She reminded everyone that standing up doesn't take power or popularity, it takes heart. This wasn't just a moment of kindness. It was a moment of change. Because real bravery isn't about fighting, it's about doing what's right, even when it's hard. And in that schoolyard, one brave student showed the entire school what that really means.